let me tell you a hard truth that might sting, but could also save your dream. In 2026, 8 out of 10 businesses launched across Africa and emerging markets will be dead or dying within 18 months. Not because the founders weren't brilliant, not because the ideas were weak, but because they're building for a world that no longer exists. You feel it, don't you? That electric anxiety humming beneath your ambition? The market you studied 6 months ago has already morphed into something unrecognizable. The customer you thought you understood is now being wooed by an AI-powered competitor they discovered on TikTok. Your supply chain, which felt stable, is one regional conflict away from collapse. This isn't business as usual anymore. This is survival in quicksand. But here's what they won't tell you at those glossy startup conferences. The entrepreneurs who understand these shifting sands aren't just surviving, they're building empires. While others panic, they're launching. While others pivot, they're leaping. And the difference isn't capital, connections, or even luck. It's a completely different way of seeing the game. The shifting sands of business. Let's talk about the ground beneath your feet because it's not stable. Across emerging markets, AI adoption is moving at triple the speed of the internet revolution. Except this time, it's not waiting for infrastructure to catch up. In Kenya, AI-powered loan applications are processing what took banks weeks in under 3 minutes. In Nigeria, logistics startups using predictive algorithms are carving 40% off delivery times in Lagos traffic that used to be a founder's nightmare. The problem, if your business model still relies on human speed for tasks that AI can do, you're not just inefficient, you're invisible. But here's where it gets personal for us. While Silicon Valley debates AI ethics over avocado toast, African entrepreneurs are solving real bleeding problems with it. The mother in rural Ghana using AI to diagnose crop diseases via her $50 smartphone. The trader in Kampala whose chatbot handles customer complaints in 5 local dialects while she sleeps. This isn't the future, it's happening in WhatsApp groups you're not in yet. Then there's the generational earthquake. Gen Z and Alpha in emerging markets aren't just digital natives, they're digital royalty with completely different expectations. They don't want products, they want purpose wrapped in convenience. A recent study across 6 African cities found that 73% of consumers under 25 will abandon a brand over a single ethical misstep. But they'll become volunteer marketers for companies that solve community problems. Your shiny new app means nothing if it doesn't address climate, inequality, or accessibility. They can smell performative branding from a mile away, and they'll bury you in the comment section before your morning coffee. And let's not sanitize the reality of geopolitical whiplash. For entrepreneurs in emerging markets, supply chain vulnerability isn't a case study, it's a Monday morning crisis. When the Red Sea shipping route coughs, East African manufacturers catch pneumonia. When the dollar strengthens, your overnight costs in local currency can jump 15%. When new EU regulations drop, your export-ready product might need a $50,000 compliance facelift you never budgeted for. These aren't outliers anymore. They're the wallpaper of modern entrepreneurship. The question isn't if you'll face them, but whether you'll see them coming. Resilient innovator. So how do you become the one who dances while others drown? It starts with a mental rewiring that feels almost unnatural at first. Extreme adaptability doesn't mean having a plan B. It means building your business like a molecule that can recombine on demand. Take the Kenyan restaurant chain that during COVID pivoted from dining to cloud kitchen to meal kit subscription to corporate catering for remote workers. Each pivot in under 8 weeks. They didn't just adjust, they dissolved their old identity and reformed it like water finding a new path. That's not crisis management, that's biological flexibility. You need to cultivate what I call organized paranoia. The practice of running weekly disaster scenarios not out of fear, but as creative brainstorming. What if mobile money fees double overnight? What if our main supplier is sanctioned? These aren't anxieties to suppress, they're innovation prompts to embrace. The fail fast, learn fast mantra has been so abused it's become startup wallpaper, but in emerging markets, it needs a cultural translation. Here, failure doesn't just mean lost capital. It can mean family debt, community shame, and personal devastation. So let's reframe it. You're not failing, you're conducting low-cost experiments with defined learning outcomes. When a Nigerian fintech startup I advised launched their savings product and saw zero uptake in the first month, they didn't declare failure. They discovered a cultural insight. Their target market associated saving with wealthy elites, but money pooling with community trust. One rebrand later, they hit 10,000 users in 3 weeks. The experiment worked, the hypothesis was wrong. That distinction saves sanity and unlocks velocity. Proactive problem solving is where the real separation happens. It's the difference between building a fire extinguisher and fireproofing the building. When you launch in Lagos, you don't just plan for traffic, you build a business model that profits from it. When you source from multiple countries, you don't just diversify suppliers, you create arbitrage opportunities from currency fluctuations. The founder who thrives in 2026 is the one who, during a power outage, isn't just running a generator, but is simultaneously developing a solar backup business on the side, because they've learned to see chaos as inventory. Transforming threats into launches. This is where theory gets flesh and blood. Let me show you how this works with entrepreneurs who turned existential threats into rocket fuel. When climate change devastated cocoa yields in Côte d'Ivoire, most farmers saw catastrophe. But one collective saw data. They partnered with agri-tech startups using satellite imagery to predict rainfall patterns, then sold that predictive intelligence to neighboring farms as a subscription service. Their core business was threatened. Their new business became essential infrastructure. They didn't pivot away from cocoa, they built a second revenue stream that made them anti-fragile. Or consider the South African events company that watched COVID wipe out their industry overnight. While competitors went digital with boring webinars, they asked a different question. What do people actually miss about events? The answer? Spontaneous connection. So they built a virtual world platform where avatars could bump into each other at virtual bars, exchange business cards, and have sidebar conversations. They sold it to global corporations craving culture for remote teams. 3 years later, their virtual platform earns triple their old physical events business, and they're licensing the tech to event organizers worldwide. This is the art of identifying white space that volatility creates. In emerging markets, volatility doesn't just create gaps, it creates chasms of unmet need. When inflation hits 30%, there's white space for barter platforms. When youth unemployment soars, there's white space for micro-internship aggregators. When supply chains break, there's white space for last-mile logistics built on motorcycle networks and WhatsApp coordination. The opportunity isn't in the stability, it's in the friction. Building for systemic shocks means designing your business model like an immune system. A Ghanaian manufacturing startup I know builds every product with 3 supply chain scenarios baked in: normal operations, 30% disruption, and 70% meltdown. Their pricing, their customer commitments, their staffing, all flex across these scenarios automatically. When a recent port strike hit, they simply triggered Scenario 2, activated their secondary suppliers, and actually gained market share while competitors were still in crisis meetings. They didn't just survive the shock, they were built to metabolize it. The mindset blueprint for 2026 and beyond. Here's the paradigm shift that separates the 20% who thrive from the 80% who don't. Competitive advantage?
is dead. Long live collaborative advantage. In emerging markets, no one owns the entire value chain. The mobile network operator doesn't own the payment infrastructure. The logistics company doesn't own the roads. The e-commerce platform doesn't own customer trust. The winners are orchestrators, not owners. They build ecosystems where competitors become partners, where data is shared to grow the pie, where your greatest asset is your ability to convene. A Tanzanian health startup I'm watching partners with rival pharmacies to aggregate purchasing power, shares data with government health systems to improve policy, and co-invests with competitors in cold chain infrastructure. Their moat isn't proprietary tech, it's the network effect of shared success. In a world of shocks, isolation is suicide. This requires a different relationship with time. The Silicon Valley sprint model, raise fast, grow fast, exit fast, assumes a stable track. But you're running a marathon through a landscape that's part jungle, part construction zone, part floodplain. Your long-term vision can't be a rigid 5-year plan. It has to be a compass direction with mile markers that adapt. The founder who wins is the one who can say, we're heading toward financial inclusion for women in informal markets, while being flexible on whether that means digital wallets, savings circles, or AI credit scoring in year 1. The vision is the horizon, the tactics are disposable. Most critically, we must talk about the asset you're probably neglecting: your mental resilience. In markets where you're building without safety nets, where family expectations weigh heavy, where every week brings a new existential threat, your psychological stamina isn't a soft skill, it's your primary infrastructure. A 2023 study of East African entrepreneurs found that those with structured mental resilience practices, peer support groups, therapist access, even simple morning non-negotiables like exercise, were 3.5 times more likely to still be operating after 2 years than those who just powered through. This isn't self-care fluff, it's strategic asset development. You wouldn't run a factory without maintaining the machines. Stop running your brain without maintenance. Your actionable edge. Enough theory. Let's get surgical. Here's your disruption readiness audit. Score yourself on each dimension from 1 to 5. 1. AI velocity. How many hours per week are you personally experimenting with AI tools that could replace your current processes? 2. Scenario diversity. Do you have documented response plans for your top 3 existential threats updated monthly? 3. Generational fluency. When did you last have an unpaid intern from Gen Z give you brutally honest feedback on your brand's relevance? 4. Ecosystem thickness. How many active partnerships do you have with entities you'd normally consider competitors? 5. Resilience architecture. What's your non-negotiable daily practice that has nothing to do with work? Score below 15, you're building on sand. 15 to 20, you've got a foundation. Above 20, you're ready to absorb shocks and convert them to energy. Now, 3 immediate steps to shift from the 80% to the 20%. First, this week, identify one process in your business, customer service, bookkeeping, content creation, and completely hand it to an AI tool for 7 days. Not as an assistant, but as the primary operator. Watch what breaks. Those breaks are your competitive intelligence. In emerging markets, AI isn't replacing jobs. It's revealing where human creativity is most valuable. Second, schedule a pre-mortem with your team. Pretend your business failed last month. Everyone must write the exact story of how it died. You'll surface vulnerabilities no SWOT analysis ever reveals. Then prioritize the 3 most plausible failure paths and build tiny, cheap experiments to test your immunity to each. This isn't pessimism, it's inoculation. And third, and this is non-negotiable, join or create a founder circle that meets weekly with one rule: no success stories allowed. Only challenges, fears, and vulnerabilities. In markets where showing weakness feels dangerous, this becomes your secret weapon. The collective intelligence and emotional ballast will carry you through moments when pure grit would crack you. I know this feels overwhelming. The ground is shifting, the threats are real, and the old playbook is kindling. But here's the truth that should electrify you. Entrepreneurs in emerging markets have been training for this chaos our entire careers. While Silicon Valley panics because the rules changed, we never had stable rules to begin with. We've been navigating volatility since day one. The difference now is that volatility is becoming the global standard, and that puts us in the driver's seat. Our muscle for uncertainty is suddenly the most valuable asset on Earth. The question isn't whether you can survive 2026, it's whether you'll claim the advantage your journey has earned you. So here's my challenge to you. In the comments, share the one disruption nightmare that keeps you up at night. The AI competitor, the supply chain collapse, the shifting regulation. But don't just name it. Tell us one experiment you're running this month to turn that nightmare into a launch pad. The community here is your collaborative advantage waiting to happen. The 20% who thrive won't be the ones with the most funding or the flashiest tech. They'll be the ones who learn to love the quicksand because they've learned to fly in it. Let's make sure you're one of them.